to get out. I'm going to start. Here we go. Chandra Sparks Splond. Say
Yeah,
that 3 times.
I know, right?
Because you were Chandra Sparks Taylor when I knew you, because you were the um, editor for Good Housekeeping magazine when I first met you, and it was Michael Baisden you were the start of my literary career. He gave me 3 things: his cover designer, his editor, and his printer. And I got 2 out of the 3. The cover designer had never wrote me back, but you were a very big part of my entrance into the literary world. And you were an editor for a very long time before you shifted into writing. But I'm going to transfer it over to the actual host of this particular segment, which is Anita L. Roseboro. So I'm going to take a little back seat right about now.
Thank you.
Well, it would be nice if we unmuted you. There we go. Can you hear
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome. I am Anita L. Roseboro, as Nalena said. Welcome to the author chat with Chandra Sparks Splond. I'm going to read your bio and then we'll get into the questions.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, you're fading in and out a little bit. Your reception must be a little off. I know you're in somewhere there's storms are going on.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So Chandra Sparks Splond is an editor, speaker, and award-winning author and blogger. She served as consulting editor for BET Books, Arabesque Romance at Kensington Publishing. She has also edited for Random House, Moody Publishers, Kamani Press, and Hyperon, as well as several New York Times, USA Today, and Essence best-selling authors. She has worked as a copy editor for Good Housekeeping, Newsday, and The Morning Call. Chandra has written for Black and Married with Kids, Bride Snore, and Romantic Times, and has interviewed author Karen Kingsbury, singer Tamala Mann, and actress Megan Good. So welcome, Chandra.
Thank you so much for having me, Anita. Thank you,
Oh,
the
you're welcome.
authors. I appreciate. I'm so happy to be here.
So tell us, how did you get started with Good Housekeeping?
Oh, um, it was actually, honestly, it was all God. So to give you a little background on my story, when I was 14, I had this crazy dream that I wanted to write books, but I didn't know how that dream was going to come true. Um, so when I got ready to go off to college, my mom told me that writers didn't make any money and I needed to find a career to fall back on. So I decided to major in journalism because that was the closest I could get to writing books. But unfortunately, I didn't like the writing style of journalism. It was a little too structured for me. And then my senior year of college, I ended up taking a class in copy editing. And I found out not only did I like it, it's something I had been doing all my life, like correcting people and correcting their papers and stuff. I just didn't know that there was a career where you could actually get paid for it. And I found that not only did I like it, I was really good at it. So good to, I was offered a job in New York. So 2 weeks after I graduated from college in Alabama, I moved to New York. Um, and I worked there for almost 13 years in various aspects of publishing. It was about 3 years into my editing career that I decided that I wanted to get closer to books. If I figured if I couldn't write them, at least I could start editing them. And I figured in order to do that, I've been working in newspapers at the time. I needed experience editing longer pieces of copy. So I'm like, well, if I edit for magazines, that will get me closer to editing longer pieces of copy to get me closer to writing books. So I started just sending out resumes. I sent a resume to Good Housekeeping, and they ended up calling me back, called me in for an interview. And at the time, they were like going through management changes or whatever. And they're like, well, we'll keep your resume on file. And I'm like, okay, whatever, not thinking anything more about it. Well, within 3 or 4 months, they actually called me back and offered me a job. So that's my story of how I ended up at Good Housekeeping. Again, it was all God. I just sent in a resume basically and ended up working there. So I worked there
That's
for 4 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's funny. My mom told me the same thing about writing because I wanted to be a journalist actually when I first got out of high school. And my mom said that that does not pay. So you need to look for a different career. So, and you talked about that you're a blogger, the author and editor. So which one of those hats that you wear do you prefer?
I actually prefer all of them, to be honest with you. I think writing books is something that I've wanted to do all of my life. So, there's my heart is in that in one way, but I love books. I love books. So the fact that I can edit them and blog about, like, that's my dream.
Awesome.
So all of them have their special place in my heart. There's not one over the other.
Awesome. Your latest release is Speak, and it deals with a 15-year-old named Kobe trying to find his own voice. How did you come up with the concept for that story?
Well, it's really funny. I actually wrote the book last summer. Um, Speak came about as a result of me last summer. My daughter had gotten her first job, so I had to get some paperwork filled out at her school. So I went up to the school and I was sitting up doing like I tend to do a lot, which is just observing teens. And this girl pulled up in a red, I think it was a red Kia. And so I'm looking at her and kind of figuring out what her story is. And I'm like, you know what? It would be kind of interesting to do a story about kids in summer school. And that was the beginning of the idea for the story. So I'm thinking it's going to be the story about a girl in summer school. But as I started writing, I found out that the girl was a small part of the story. The story was actually about Kobe, the main character of the book, and his experience learning to find his voice. Um, so as I was writing the story, if you read the book, you'll find out that the main character's name is Kobe Bryant Means. He was named after Kobe Bryant. So as once I finished writing the story, I kind of put it aside and I'm like, well, I'll release it next summer. Well, as we all know, when February of this year came, COVID hit. So I'm like, and by that time, Kobe Bryant had passed away. So I'm like, I probably need to rework this story because I wanted it to be real and relevant to the current times. So I had to go back in and weave in all this stuff about COVID and dealing with Kobe Bryant and all that to make the story relevant to what's going on now.
Awesome. Awesome. So you have 9 young adult books. Is that your
10? It's 10.
10?
Mm-hmm.
Is that your preferred genre to write in?
It is only because, again, I wanted to write books since I was 14, and growing up, as much as I love to read, I never saw any stories about kids like me, or people who look like me on the cover. So I just feel like that's part of my purpose, to write those books and to tell those stories so that our kids see themselves in books. I mean, it's very important. People don't think that, some people may not think diversity matters, but it really does. And I think it helps too. I meet a lot of kids who say that they don't like to read. And I think part of the reason that they don't like to read is because they don't have stories that they can relate to and apply to their reality. So I feel like that's part of my job, especially for our teens, to write books that they can relate to and apply to the reality of their lives.
I totally agree. I always had my sons at Barnes and Noble. Every Saturday we were out buying books so that they would read.
And I'm very intentional about making sure that I include, Black images on my cover in different shades and tones, with different hairstyles. Some have natural hair, some don't. The main character, Kobe, in this book, you see he wears glasses with a bow tie and everything. And he loves to read. So I want different kids to see themselves in my story. So you have some rich kids, you have some kids who live in a project. So I try and tell a wide range of stories.
I'd like to know, how did your daughter, what was her response to you writing something for her age group? How did she feel when her friends and stuff, and that's my mama, how did she respond to that?
she's very unfazed by it all, which actually that's good for me because it kind of keeps me grounded. You know, honestly, she's grown up with this. She was actually my motivation for finally starting to write. Because when I was pregnant with her, right after I had her, you know, I remembered my dream, my childhood dream of wanting to write books. And, you know, I'm like, well, how can I tell my daughter to make her dreams come true if I haven't made my dreams come true? So I made it my goal to write a book, to at the very least write a book before she turned a year old. Once I did that, I completed the book a month after her first birthday. Once I did that, I challenged myself to get a book deal before she turned 2. And I received the offer for my book, Spin It Like That, 2 months after her second birthday. So really, she's grown up with, you know, me writing books. She didn't start reading my young adult novels until she was around the age of 12. So she's read all of them at this point. She serves as my beta reader because she's real quick. She's real quick to go in and be like, well, you probably want to change that. So I really do appreciate that. But you know, she's kind of like, oh, okay, mom, all right, yeah, that's just what you do. What's for dinner, you know? So it definitely helps to keep me grounded.
Awesome. So you interview an array of entertainers. How do you avoid becoming starstruck, or do you become starstruck?
Absolutely become starstruck, not just by the entertainers, by the authors too. Because a lot of the authors that I've interviewed are actually people whose work that I absolutely love. So, but you know, I know that I have a job to do. So I'll kind of be, I'll, once I land in the interview, I'll kind of be like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe I actually landed this interview. And then I just go in and get the job done. Every now and then on occasion, like after the interview is, after the thing has been published, I'll kind of go back and email them and be like, you know, I'm a huge fan of yours after the fact. But for the most part, I hope I keep it professional, so that they're not aware that I'm really freaking out on the inside.
So you edited for Elin Harris.
I did.
I loved Invisible Man and Just As I Am.
Visible
What
Life. Yeah.
Invisible Life?
Yes.
Yes. What was it like for you during a time when being a gay man or a gay period was taboo? Did you personally receive any backlash?
No, I never did. And honestly, you know, that was never the focus of our relationship. Of course, I knew that Elin was gay. I mean, everyone knew that, but he was just such a warm and giving and amazing person. His sexuality, that was the last thing on my mind. We just worked together, and we became friends too, because we spent a lot of time together. I would go to his house like every Saturday so we could work on his manuscript. So we spent a lot of time editing and talking and just getting to know each other. So that relationship was a blessing. And that's another relationship that was all God. I just emailed Elin one day. I'm like, you know what? He knows a lot of people. He works with a lot of people. Maybe he can direct me to some up and coming authors who might need an editor. So I sent him an email. I'm like, you know, if you know of anyone, I appreciate it if you refer me. He was like, oh, I need some work done. And that's how our working relationship started. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Pat Simmons says to tell you that she loves you even though you make her cry with your edits.
Love you too, Patty. You know it's all worth it in the end. It's a part of the process.
Do you have advice that you would give for anyone wanting to become a blogger? How would they get started?
The biggest thing is to just start. You know, once you have an idea of what you want your blog to be about, some people recommend that you have at least, like you jot down at least 10 story ideas. So you know that, you know, it's not just going to be a one-off blog that you're doing. So jot down a list of story ideas revolving around your blog. And then be consistent. That's the biggest thing. Consistency is key. I blog 3 days a week. When I first started, it was 5 days, and I don't know why I was doing that to myself. So I've dropped down to 3 now. But consistency is key. you have to post something. You can't do something, this month and then 2 months later you come back in. People have to kind of expect what you're putting out there. And then, do stuff that people actually want to read. One piece of advice I got was to write about stuff that you care about, because if you care about it, other people are probably going to care about it too. And then the other thing is to write to your younger self. What stuff did you need to know when you were younger that you needed advice about? So I've kind of carried those things with me, and those are things that I tend to do.
Awesome. I'm gonna give you your props from the chat. Let's see. Sonia Visor says, thank you for all you do.
Wow.
Lachelle Weaver says, Chandra is the editor for her next book. I'm so looking forward to working with her.
Oh, look
And
at
Deborah says that you acquired her first book from BET Books. She owes so much for believing in her and her writing.
Oh, thank you. You say it was Deborah?
Yes.
Fletcher Mello?
I'm not sure. There's no last name. It just says Deborah.
Okay, it probably is. Yeah,
Probably.
it was well deserved, Deborah. So.
Pat George Walker says she's a huge fan.
Oh, thank you, Pat.
And Sierra Kay says Chandra is really provocative and intentional. She sent resumes out because she needed a change and got the Good Housekeeping job. She reached out to Elin Harris and became his editor. Good lesson.
Yeah, I have never been afraid of being told no. I mean, that's always been my mindset. Well, all they can do is say no. But then what happens if they say yes? I mean, that yes can open doors for you and change your life in ways that you never imagined. So I've always been very big on that. Don't be afraid of no.
Awesome.
Because all it is one yes.
Go ahead.
All it takes.
Do any other tribe members have any questions?
Hey, Chandra. I could talk all day about Chandra and how amazing and incredible she is. Excellent editor. And what I love most, Chandra, is when you get the edits back and you're reading her summary and stuff. And then she goes, we, like, oh, we could do this on this page, or we could do that. And at first I was like, we, but then it's like, I really love that, because it's like, you feel like, oh, okay, she's in the trenches right along with me. So I do appreciate that. What I have a question about is this. You know how they say like doctors make the worst patients and stuff? Well, who edits the editor? And is that a process that you have somebody else do for you?
It is. And I'm still in the process, because I'm so nice, nasty, and I'm a perfectionist. So I'm still in the process of finding somebody that I love, love, love. So if y'all know somebody, let me know. But it's totally a process, and you're right. Yeah, editors, yeah, it's a process.
So there's a question. Do you edit for individuals who are not with your publisher?
Is it Dira who asked that question?
Yes, Dira Williams.
Yeah, I'm actually not with the publishing house right now. I do all freelance work. So I do it for publishers and for individuals, but not for a specific publisher. Oh.
Any more questions?
We need to bring you to the caravan of the ancestors in Texas.
I think
she's from the bookshop in, okay.
That might have been for Daniel.
Yeah, I think it was for Daniel earlier.
I'm way behind on this chat. It's been going. Okay, there we go. There we go.
Let me see. Anybody else have any questions? Lisa, you have any more? Oh, I have one for you. Do your titles come first, or do your characters start talking to you first?
A little bit of both. Sometimes it's been a title and sometimes it's been the character. It really just depends. And I just learned to go with it. I typically have a working title, and by the time the books come out, it typically changes. So it really just depends.
Sharina Cromarty wants to know if she can edit for you.
Send me an email and we can definitely talk, Sharina. Thank you for asking. Yeah. If you go to my website, which is chandrasparksplond.com, you can message me through my website. Thank you. Shoot your shot. Nothing wrong with that.
Right, right. Yes, Joy. Unmute.
I wanted to ask about Black fiction addiction.
Okay.
You are doing such a service to authors of color. How did you come up with that concept? And how has it been working out? I mean, I know it's been working out fabulously, but I want to hear it from you.
You know what? This week will be my 5th year blog anniversary. So on Friday is the official date. I actually had the idea for Black fiction addiction when I first started blogging 5 years ago, but I held on to the idea because I was scared. I'm like, how are folks gonna receive this? I already started doing this personal blog. Like, how is this supposed to work? But the idea just would not let me go. But finally, last year, December, I decided to launch it as a YouTube channel. But I think I did like 4 episodes, really was not feeling how I was coming across on camera and stuff. But I knew I was supposed to go forward with the idea. So I'm like, let me revamp this and do it as a blog and a platform on Instagram. So that's what I started doing. And, it's been so much fun and it's been a blessing. It's growing and changing every day. Again, the thing with it is consistency is key. I post 2 or 3 times a day, which I never thought I'd be doing that on social media, but it is what it is. But I just really wanted a way to celebrate Black books and the authors who create them. I love Black books. I don't know if I can preach that enough.
I heard that. I love Black books, and again,
I posted that the other day, Lisa. But it's just very important that we celebrate ourselves. I mean, if nobody else is gonna do it, we have to do it. So that's what I do. I celebrate us. I do a book of the day every day. I do more recommendations than reviews. Just because I used to be a book reviewer and I know how subjective it is. So I just share books and people seem to really enjoy that.
So which one of your books is your favorite?
Folks always say, well, that's like asking a parent, which child is their favorite. But for me, I think Spin It Like That, which was my very first book, will always hold a special place in my heart, just because it showed me that this dream I had been carrying around in my heart for, since I was 14 years old, that I wasn't crazy. Like, there was really something to it. Spin It Like That was published through BET's Kamani True imprint. So, I did it with a major publisher house. They were Harlequin at that point. So it showed me that I could do it. And it gave me what I needed to kind of continue to push forward and say, okay, there's really something to this. And then once people started talking about it and stuff, I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Maybe I actually can write.
Is your calling?
Yeah.
Pat Simmons would like to say something. No.
Okay.
Just tell me. So while we're waiting for Pat's voice, I wanted to share once again your latest work. And that's the most current book of yours.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then I want to share from your host, because station identification pays the bills. Here we go. And you can get it all for the very low price of $2.99 right there on Amazon. Okay, felt like an infomercial there. Thank you very much. So we're wrapping this one up. It's those 3 dots. I'm juggling an iPad, desktop, phone, all of these things that are coming in, try to make sure this goes smoothly. Okay, she said the story of how we met at a slam jam, and she told me about how many manuscripts a publisher has, But a book that is well edited, it will probably be picked up by the publisher.
Yeah, and there's truth to that. You know, editors have so many books coming into them through publishing houses. You know, if the stories are about equal in terms of being a great story, I'm gonna go with the one that needs the least amount of work. So if that book is edited, that's probably the book that I'm gonna acquire. I was responding. I see people were asking questions in the chat. Lisa Dotson asked me, how did my mom respond to my first book coming out? Both my parents actually passed away before my first book was released. So fortunately, they didn't get to see my dream come true, but I'm still, with every book that I release, I'm always striving to make them and the rest of my family proud.
Makes sense.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
Thank you.
Indeed. So what we're going to do is tell us where we can find you and where we can find your books and all of that.
Okay. Well, you can find me online at chandrasparksplond.com. That's ChandraSparksSplond.com. On my website, you can find all my social media links, as well as links to both my blogs, because now I have my personal blog and Black Fiction Addiction. You can find information, including excerpts about all of my books. My books are available on Amazon, and most of them are available through Kindle Unlimited. So that's where you can find me in a nutshell. And there's also information about my editing on chandrasparksblonde.com. So if anyone is interested, feel free to reach out. I typically do a free 5-page double space consecutive sample edit on your manuscript. So
you had to qualify that, because people is like, I want 1-page edit on this.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
That's a consecutive.
Yes.
That's cracking me up. I get it. Okay, so we thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank y'all for
we will definitely be chatting again with you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank y'all so
Thank you,
much.
Chandra.
Thank you,
You can stick around by just putting on video, stop video, and you'll go into the panelist queue and you can watch everything else going on. And I'm going to pause it right here.